All right. We have been given the go-ahead to get started. So I want to, first of all, introduce myself. My name is Hani Shanib. I am the founding president of the National Council on US Libya Relations. And we have a series of webinars that we do that address the subjects of Libya's stabilization and institution building. We have several webinars that will be coming in addition to this one. One that will be here in a few months, which is on the Derna disaster 1 year after, to discuss where we are in the reconstruction and assistance with the Derna population and reconstruction of the city. We also have a webinar that will be coming in closer to the elections, and that will address the subject of how will the election results affect Libya, the North Africa, and the Sahel. And we will have our experts that will be discussing the implications of the results of the elections on these countries. But today, we are going to be addressing a very important subject. And many will say, why are you discussing business in Libya? We know that it's problematic. But the whole idea of discussing doing business in Libya today is to try and identify the challenges in doing business in Libya and identify how we can propose suggestions and prioritize how those suggestions can be made to change the meliu in Libya so that we would have better advancement of the idea of doing business in Libya with its implications on the economy, on the poverty that Libya has right now, and on many other areas that we need to deal with as we look at the future of Libya. So with that, we recognize that in order to have a stable stool for the development of business in Libya, we cannot separate it from the three legs of stabilization, which is the political, the security, and the economic track. And unfortunately, we know very well that the economic track that was proposed by the United Nations, engaging Libya and its partners internationally, have been halted completely. So this is an important topic, and to have the experts that we need to address this topic, we are joined with 4 experts in this area. We do have with us, to start with, Mr. Hassan Tatanaki, who is a native of the eastern city of Tobruk and comes from a very distinguished family of business people that have at least 100 years track record in trade. They're recognized. And obviously, he has grown the business and has very well in this area. And he leads the many companies, including Challenger, which is in the oil field services and has companies in North Africa and in the Gulf area. He's also a philanthropist and is the leader of the Al-Hurra charity. He also has political ambition, has ideas about how to do something good for the country, and has put his name on as president as a candidate for presidency in the elections in Libya that has not happened for the last year and a bit. We also have with us another presidential candidate and a savvy business individual and entrepreneur, Ahmed Maitig, who comes from the city of Misrata. He has been a very successful businessman in Misrata, and then he, in 2011, became much more involved in politics and has actually ascended rapidly with his political acumen to become the deputy prime minister of Libya in 2014. He brings in a very clear insight on what his ideas are to develop the country economically, and we're very honored to have him with us today. Additionally, we have Hosni Bey, and who doesn't know Hosni Bey in Libya? He is the president of the HB Holding Company, and this company has at least 32 corporations the last time I counted, in different areas of trade, services, import, export, real estate, banking, and so on. Hosni's roots are from the city of Susa, and he grew up in Benghazi and then lives in Tripoli now. He's been living in Tripoli for many years. His education spans from Libyan to Italian institutions, all the way to the University of Pennsylvania, where he developed his skills in economics and commerce. He's a prominent political and voice. He's very vocal. He doesn't shy of calling a spade a spade. He has his friends and he has his enemies. And again, it would be nice to hear from him his views on how to reconstruct and build the appropriate milieu for business to be happening in Libya. We also happen to have with us, and we're very honored to have Evan Mayer, who is the political and economic chief officer in Libya, comes in from a track record of being in the office in the State Department for at least 12 years. He's worked in many capacities. He's a graduate from Notre Dame and then Harvard Kennedy School. And then he went on to work with several posts in Baghdad, Beirut, Islamabad, Brussels, worked in the unit in DC for Ukraine, and was also an advisor of Senator Chris Murphy. So he brings in a level of expertise and knowledge of how the United States develops its perspective on how to build economies, particularly in frail states. And then last but not least, we do have with us Wolfgang Puchtai, who is not a stranger for the National Council. He's the chairman of the advisory board. He has an incredible track record on security and analysis of security in Libya. And again, I welcome you all to this webinar. It is being translated and is broadcasted in Arabic at the Al Wasat TV. So with this introduction, let us try and decipher what makes business potentially a success or a failure. And everyone knows that if you want to do business in any country, one must recognize the basics of doing business in Libya, which is the growth potential of any opportunity that one wishes to explore, the capital security, which is to assure that the investment is not going to go foul, the freedom of movement of capital, and also the ease by which a business entity can do business in any country. And with that, we will address, to start with, how to reduce the risks to capital in any investment that comes in to Libya, and how do we basically assure the investors that there is opportunity in Libya that is going to be secure, and with the background that Libya is recognized by as a default state. There are so many companies that have worked in Libya in the past and have had a negative experience. They're still calling for their money. So perhaps to start with the risk of reducing risk to capital, I want to bring in, let's start with Ahmed Maitik. Ahmed, you must have ideas about the issue of default and how do you stabilize and reduce or introduce Libya as low risk to the capital that is brought in. Ahmed, the first question is for you.
Well, I'm very happy to be with you today to discuss issues that are very important for anybody who would like to start business in Libya or restart business in Libya. As you know, that we are passing through a very difficult, delicate time in Libya, especially after viewing of many people outside the country who seeing Libya as difficult place to make business, which is based on three issues. First is the limited access to the capital, so Libya. How you can invest in Libya, guarantee you're bringing money in Libya and get out with your capital outside Libya. The second thing is that the currency and stability as well. And we will maybe go back to this when we are discussing the impact of the 27% tax was based on the Libyan exchange rate. Third one is the uncertainty with the regulations. We have, on the past 10 years, a bit problems of increasing so many regulations that cannot be very clear to the foreigner investor in Libya. Overall, that Libya is still a confident place in certain area, which is one of it. It's the oil and gas. It seems that, as you know, that the NOC on the past 3 years tried to bring in many of the companies who would like to increase the Libyan production of oil. Plus, there's a very big possibility with the infrastructure of the countries. This is where mean companies that they can come to Libya and investing. We are not discussing issue about commercial, opening a new financial institution like banks or of that. But still, uncertainty, there is a lot of uncertainty, which is not that easy to start business with a country that they have two governments at the time being. The second is the problem of government spending without any clear budget of this. Third one is the risk of starting.
Yeah, Ahmed, let me ask you
starting war, which is.
Yeah, let me ask you very specifically, Ahmed. How do you deal with the subject of the default state? You have an impression that if you in and if you have a project in Libya, just like has happened in the last maybe 20 years, you're not going to get your money out. And knowing that the government is the principal tender provider in the country. Yes, there are some small projects here and there, but if you want to do a larger project, you're going to have to deal with institutions, notwithstanding the NOC. The NOC has a good reputation. But let's just go into all the infrastructure projects that potentially have just been put into Libya. For example, Darna just came out of a disaster. There's some major infrastructural projects that need to be done. And let's say you're an outsider country or an outside company and so on. How do you convince this country, recognizing that you're seen as a default state, how do you convince them that, you know what, let's start all over again. We're going to guarantee your money. How do you do that? How do you start giving that sense of confidence?
As I explained, there's two kinds of contracts in Libya. There's a government contract and there's a private contract. When you're talking about the government contract, you're talking about dealing with the government guarantee. And still until today, and this is, thanks God, is working well, any government guarantee, it still function and have quite a reputation. And this is where you just explained NOC reputation is quite good. And other country contractors who are working like the Darna one you just mentioned, it's clear that this is going to be a government guarantee. If you're talking about making business and private business in Libya, this is a completely different story. And we have many businessmen with us today, and both of them can speak pretty loudly about that. But still, if you are talking about government contractors, and still quite positive, it's not only about the media issue. I know that the media outside Libya is very effective and very passive against Libya. But talking about contractor and NOC, talking about roads, and that's why you see many of the around country, which they have very long history with Libya, Egyptian companies, Turkish company, and some of European countries, they know it quite well about the guarantee coming from the Libyan bank. And none of them is working without an opening LC or a guarantee from the Libyan government, which is still quite positive, and they still have A classification in many of them. But doing private business and construction is a completely different story.
Very good. Okay, thank you. There was recently a mission that came in from Libya, including the Minister of Finance, the central bank, and a group of individuals that work with the government. And they were in conversation with the whole idea is to identify some sort of loan security system that can work with them. There's also Libyan investment, which supposedly is working, but it hasn't really worked very much. And then you have the private sector insurance companies that are not really mature in Libya. If they do engage, then they will cost us at least 30% of the cost of a project or something to buy into insuring your projects and so on. So in other words, other than the words and language of, we assure you and so on, there is not yet any form of guarantee for capitals that they will be coming in and they will obtain the revenue and then have a flow in and out of the country as they wish. And there are no other partners other than the government of Libya that is willing to step in and pay or ensure the investment that a foreigner would be there. So, Hassouna, do you want to get engaged in this one here and give me your opinion on this?
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Let me just be very clear here. When you talk about business and you talk about investments, especially foreign investments or entities coming into Libya or anywhere, first thing they look for stability, transparency, and accountability. This, sir, you don't have. That's number one. Number two, we are all talking about now investment in Libya, etc., etc. And you mentioned two countries in particular, which was Egypt and Turkey, who are into the construction, etc. This you're talking about outside services. We have to talk about what should be the thing for Libya, not for trying to encourage foreign investment in Libya. Foreign investment is one thing, being a contractor or a supplier is another. But I think also, which is very important, there is no way any businessman or any person or any entity with any sense would go to a country who doesn't even know who's the government, who is the person in charge, what is who and who is what. You mentioned two governments in Libya. There are not two governments in Libya. There's many governments in Libya because anybody could destroy as he wishes. But to build something, that's where you need leadership. What we have is non-governments in Libya. The parliament is a government within itself. Agil is a government within himself. The army in Benghazi is a government within himself. Haftar is a government within himself. Babe is a government within himself, etc., etc., etc. So why are we kidding ourselves by trying? I know you're getting angry with me, doctor, but please bear with me. As long as we have no security, stability, transparency, accountability, we are not going forward. This is number one. But what is even worse, and which is really the dangerous situation that we are facing now in Libya, is the illegal immigrants. Nobody seems to be attacking that situation. We have an excess of 1.2 million illegal immigrants in Libya, where the governments of Libya cannot even entertain or accommodate their own subjects in health, in security, in education. And then you have 1.2 million. So, sir, you talked about NOC. I am in the oil business, right? And people think I'm crazy, which obviously I am, to be investing heavily in Libya with the situation we're in today, okay? But because we have been investing for a long time. When you talk about NOC, de facto you're talking about the south. 90% of the Libyan oil derives from the south of Libya. There is no security stability in the south, okay? So when we talk about, investments and financing, and the only thing that's working in Libya now is trading. And I'm sure Hosni Bey will account to this or not. So if you're talking about long-term type of building an industry or tourism, or you have so many potential in Libya, but you don't have stability, you don't have governments. Why till now we have no government? Is it so difficult? I mean, are you aware? And I apologize for being a bit, I don't know. Only last week, big amount of armaments landed at Tobruk going to the south from Russians. Then you have the other powers within the south, etc. Dr. Hani, we are in a time bomb in Libya. You might think I'm paranoid, maybe you think I'm hysterical, but we are a matter of time.
Right.
You know that Niger has passed a law last 6 months ago, that if a Niger person wants to go to Libya, does not need an exit visa.
Well, you
So the
know,
borders are. I'm trying to get is, let's go to the core of the issue. The core is not how to do business in Libya. The core is how to stabilize Libya, have transparency, have accountability. Then you talk about business.
so Hassouna, I'm not going to interrupt you, but I will have to emphasize what you just said in a capsule. The ease of doing business in Libya is a serious issue. And Libya has been ranked by the Economic Freedom Index, is a very important index, as number 150 in 2010. And that was at a time when Libya was starting to take a look at how they are doing their business and try and do some sort of reforms. But despite of all this, it was ranked 150. That's 2010. In 2023, Libya could not even be ranked in the Economic Freedom Index. And very simple reasons that you mentioned. There's systemic corruption. There's the weakness of the role of law that you have mentioned. There's marginalization of the private sector. There's, many hindering important activity, all the elements that actually prevent. There's muting because a lot of noise in there. So I think basically there is a very strong and compelling index that shows that the environment in Libya is yet not suitable for doing business. That we know. But what I'm trying to do right now with this collection of very prominent experts in how to do business in Libya is to ask, if you were to have the security that is, if you were to have one government, if you have been able to stabilize the currency, if you have all those things done, and you now have a vision or a project of encouraging business in Libya, where would you start? What are your priorities? And I'm going to throw to Hosni Bey. Hosni, do you want to jump specifically on this thing? You've cleared up the plate now. Everything is all taken care of. Now you want to start your project of business.
Thank you, Dr. Hani. I agree with what Hassan and Ahmad has just said. I would first of all segregate between contracting, as Hassan already said, and investing. So in terms of investment, you need the risk profile and the risk appetite of the investor. We have today in Libya a foreign company, mostly in oil and gas, who are investing heavily. They are still investing, and they are reaping $4 billion from these investments every year, out of a total production of oil of $36 billion at the rate of $80 a barrel. And in an economy which is today $50–60 billion, that can be an economy of $300 billion, because we should look at the potentials. Yes, we have challenges. We have issues. We have two governments. We have two armies. We have two parliaments. We have two of everything. But if we want to be pragmatic rather than being today all the problems of Libya are basically economic. Economic, not in the sense of economic problems, but the wealth or the model of Libya is being structured in a way that everybody is running to rule Libya for one reason, only one, to rob Libya, to rob the people of Libya. During your speech, Dr. Hani, you said Libyan poverty. There is no such a thing as a Libyan poverty. There are Libyan people who have been deprived of their rights because if you look at the figures, you look at the distribution of wealth and the rest, you will find out that we don't need much to restructure our economy. Today, the government wants to do everything, but cannot do anything because 65% of the GDP is in the hand of NOC, and the model of NOC will never work. It has been working badly for the last 78 years. Hassouna will just said it. It will never work the way it's working because it's not a profit and loss center. It is financed by the budget, and as anything financed by the budget, that means just throwing money away, throwing good money after bad money. So the model has changed. But depending again on the risk profile and appetite of any company, there are very big opportunities even today in Libya. Just to give one, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It is also in the oil and gas business. We are today importing. We are consuming in Libya about 13 million tons of fuel, of gas oil and diesel. So, and we are importing about 2/3 of this. So we are a country that exports crude, refines it abroad, and re-imports 2/3 of it. Only 1/3 of it, most of it gas, it is processed locally. So somebody that can have an insurance covered by the World Bank through the MIGA insurance company can definitely be able to invest in such an opportunity where he doesn't need other than the initial investment. He doesn't need really the central bank of Libya for his money, nor for his repayment or amortizing the project or the profit that he is making. Because
okay,
yeah.
Well, Hosni, Hosni, I take your point, but you brought in a very important, which is and Hassouna and Ahmed also alluded to it in a way. So, do we really have good commercial laws? I mean, there's the 2012, 207 law and the law 23 of 2011, which is the commercial code regarding how to do business in Libya. There's a huge amount of bureaucracy in the processing of any investor, whether it is private or other, when they walk into Libya. And then the registration process is also very complicated. I mean, I remember when I was at the World Economic Summit in Jordan, and that was in the early 90s, we had to deal with some really, really bureaucratic matters, such as, they still had papers. If you want to register, you have to fill up some forms. The forms have to go to this and that and security and you spend months until you register a company. And that was immediately resolved with an immediate increase in the registration of foreign companies and so on, when they actually transformed this into an electronic system. Companies that come to Libya, they will have to pay a 20% tax, regardless 20 plus 4%. Jihad, what is this jihad tax? When you come into somebody and you ask them, well, you have to pay 4% jihad tax. What is this jihad tax today in a modern era? And what are we fighting in there? So all of this is what I'm trying to say is even the simple processes, the laws of commerce, the process, bureaucratic process, and so on, is not very friendly for investments. Ahmed Maitik, I want you to address this. How do you resolve this? Do we need to revamp our commercial things, commercial laws and codes and so on of doing business in Libya? And how would you do that, Ahmed?
Well, Dr. Hani, we passed through a very difficult time through 2010 and 27, 28, when we just started with the 2023 law or commercial law. At that time, Libya was almost a social country. We're implementing a law at that time. It was quite a very good step toward an open market and open moving capital and all of this. Mr. Hosni remember that quite well. And as a businessman community at that time, we are struggling with all laws that was introduced by previous regime in 1970 and 1975, 78, and the 80s. So 2023 was a very good law to start with. Should be slowly moderate, as you were mentioning, regarding the taxation, regarding the law of taxation, and other issues. As you know, Libya is still passing through a period of construction, a new constitution of Libya. Yeah, and many of things that should have a division going on. I 100% agree with you. There's many things have to be changed to bring in a new investor in Libya and people who are looking at the Libyan as an opportunity. I don't want to be very deep on that, but the whole issue about the taxation of Libya have to be restructured again. And as a private business have to consider that investing in Libya is still a very positive on a way that many of these taxes you mentioned, you can have 2 to 5 years free without any taxation on the beginning of the business. This is where, a positive issue exists, but still on, as the division is going on between the two government, the two parliament, or even not a two parliament, one, it's called one council, which is more of consult, but still the government to be united and having one government so we can start the business with.
So what would prevent a decree to cancel the 4% jihad taxes? I mean, that boggles my mind completely. Is that still on?
You have to go to the parliament and ask for it. Once the parliament declared and free it, you cannot no longer pay it. As you know, that the parliament is the registered body that can put in taxes or take off taxes. It's very clear on that. I don't want to go to very simple. Yeah.
We have the head of the parliament
in
an artificial intelligence conference in Cairo just a couple of days ago. If you ask ChatGPT tomorrow, what would you do? They will tell you immediately erase this 4% tax. That does not make sense. And it doesn't really take a rocket scientist to recognize that there has to be some reforms in the structure of commercial laws in Libya to make it look, at least appear, attractive outsiders. The question of security brings in a very, very, very important point. The south of Libya is the soft belly of Libya as far as security is concerned. The major amount of revenue that Libya generates is from oil and gas, and most of it is in the south. I want to hear from Wolfgang Pushtai, who is a security expert. What is the situation security-wise, particularly in the south of Libya, and how does he see it deterring or encouraging business in Libya? Wolfgang, can you share us your thoughts, please? Wolfgang, I think you're muted and you're not with us. Wolfgang? Wolfgang, I think we lost you. All right. All right.
Doctor, can I talk? Can I say something?
I'll just
go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I would just like to go in, but now we're making a point for the 4% jihad tax. I think this is least of our issues right now. But then coming back to say the new laws. A law is good if we could implement it. If there's no implementation of laws, you could write laws till the cows come home. You know what I'm saying? So we want to go to the core of the issue. And the reason, and I want to go to another situation, please, if you don't mind. The reason that people might invest in Libya now is not because of hoping to have a return today. They were planning on hoping for stability within the next 5 to 10 years, where the returns will be astronomical in comparison to what you would put today. So it's like a gamble. Okay. And the only businesses that there is in Libya right now, as we all said, is in the oil business. And the oil business will refer to the billions of dollars that have been injected into the oil industry. Sir, that billions you put in, you're getting it out the same day. I mean, I'm just being obviously exaggerating. So it is not something that will benefit or enhance or encourage or is an economic safe situation for the future of Libya. I agree. This is, you see, all we talk about is the oil. Now we've gone to production of 1.5 million, 1.4 million barrels, right? I would like to ask one question, very simple question. We have all Libya's money been frozen by the United Nations since 2011. Yet, since 2011 till this day, nobody has given any accountability of in excess of 700 to 600 billion dollars that has been sent outside on oil exports, which is mainly oil exports. Nobody knows anything about it. Yet, when you try to raise money or whatever, you don't get anywhere. Yet there is over $600-700 billion that disappears in the wind that will never be compensated. Can we go to the core? The core, what does the West stand for? Accountability, transparency. That's what we lack. And as long as we don't have that, there is no future for the time being. So the idea of trying to promote foreign companies coming into Libya, with all due respect, anyway, okay, I said my case.
There's a huge question in there because when you talk about accountability, transparency of the West, I think there is a culture shock in the Middle East with accountability and transparency in view of the political events that have happened in Gaza and so on. But I don't want to get into accountability and transparency at an international level because we do have our own problems and challenges in Libya itself. And you're absolutely, we do not have accountability or transparency, and we are ranked very badly as an index worldwide. Is Wolfgang with us today? I'm looking for you and I can't hear you, Wolfgang. Have we lost you? All right, Hosni.
Yeah, thank you. Let me tell you that I agree that with you that and with Hassan that we do have excellent laws. Let us put it this way. Even today, we do have excellent laws, but we have a problem of decrees. You cannot rule by decree. Once you start ruling by decree, then the laws are worth not even the paper they are written on. So yes, we have wonderful laws. Law 2023, 10/2023, one of them. Law 7, 2023, 2013. Sorry, not 2010, 23, 2010. So all these laws have come into being just before, few months before the revolution, maximum 1 year. Number 7, number 9, number 23, 2010. So we have excellent laws, but we also have one-stop shop licensing for international companies. But the problem is the decrease, because simply the government employee, he becomes the master, and he wants to direct whatever business toward his cronies, to himself. So we go there into corruption and the rest. But we have excellent laws. We don't need new laws. The law number 7 or law number 5 actually, or no, law number 9 exempts foreign investment companies from taxes. I know it frightens people when you talk about jihad, because in the mentality of the ignorant, whether our local Arab mentality of ignorance, Islamic mentality of ignorance, or even Judeo-Christian mentality of ignorance, jihad doesn't really need to go and kill others, or to go and fight and for religion. It's nothing to do with the jihad. It's something different. It's charity in its but of course, when you pronounce it the way everybody does pronounce it, it looks like we are going to kill every Muslim and every Arab and every Christian and every Judeo who doesn't agree with whatever we believe it is godly and agreeable. So coming back to the laws, we have excellent laws, but the decrees are the problem.
Right. So, I mean, we have to give credit to the reflections that occurred in the era between 2008 until 2010.
Yeah.
When he was a finance minister, there was a lot of changes that have happened during this era, and he voted very clearly at that. But I just want to have a very specific approach to how do you encourage foreign investment, notwithstanding the fact that, and I hope that Wolfgang will join us again, because we do have some security.
Yes, I'm back. Sorry for the problem. I've heard your question before.
Yeah. Can you please address this question about security and its impact on any project for investment and so on in there? Asuna made it very clear. He said, you know, we have immigrants that are walking in with their families and so on. We have basically camps with Sudan and so on. There's Niger migration that is happening on a minute-to-minute basis. Of Libya. Somebody, they are not on because there's a lot of sound in. So, Wolfgang, please, can you share with us your thoughts on the security aspect?
Yes, sure. Actually, this is the very first question that I'm getting from the companies that ask me about investment in Libya. And my reply is always the same. Currently, the likeliness, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
The likeliness of a major military confrontation between the East and West is highly unlikely. We have still some terrorist cells from the Al-Qaeda and the Islamic Maghreb and ISIS in the south. That's, I would say, still a problem, but not a major problem. But we have lots of local militias and lots of fighting militias versus militias, especially in the greater Tripoli area, in the Zavia area. The area under control by the Libyan National Army is somehow better off. We have throughout the country, also in the areas controlled by the Libyan National Army, a huge problem with regard to organized crime and, of course, with regard to corruption. We have violent street crime. We have kidnapping for ransom, home intrusions, especially in the larger cities and also on the coastal road towards Tunisia. We have a major crime problem, especially also with regard to kidnapping for ransom, also in the south. But please let me highlight, the situation is very different from city to city. And I would like to highlight that two examples for cities that are quite safe. And this includes Misrata, and this includes, for example, Tobruk. So if you want to make business in Libya, security depends on your kind of business and on the region you are working on. One major issue that I've heard from several companies who are currently present in Libya is the non-payment of contracts. This means companies are waiting for months and years for their money. And some companies have informed me that they are about to withdraw from Libya because of this issue. Another point, and this was mentioned already by the speakers before, is the legal uncertainty. And something which was, at least during I was able to listen, not yet mentioned, is the lack of skilled and qualified Libyan specialist workers. I would say, altogether, Libya needs to build credibility, with regard to general stability mentioned before, with regard to honoring existing contracts, with regard to payments, legal certainty, fighting corruption, and also with regard to expanding the private sector. And let me just briefly mention the last point. I would also recommend to find some kind of settlements for the still open issues from the time of the revolution. I know several companies that have lost 2 to 3 digit millions in 2011, and they will not return to Libya before the open issues are solved. So altogether, the future, I would say, depends mainly on the Libyans. Libya has resources that are of interest for major investors. But the question is how Libya itself will develop.
Wolfgang, I appreciate your input on, and it's linked to investment and linked to doing business in Libya. But as Hassouna mentioned, Libya relies on oil and gas still until we have kind of divested and moved into different renewable energies and other projects and services and so on. We still depend on oil and gas services that are related to gas. But how is that influenced by security in the south?
And this is exactly another key issue, which is, I fear, not understood throughout Libya. Oil and gas is, of course, an own story with regard to investment, if security allows it. If there is a return of investment from the capital invested. And this brings me to the oil blockades. Oil blockades are much more likely with regard to Fezzan than for the oil crescent. And I know from major oil companies that for them an investment in the oil crescent makes more sense than an investment in Fezzan. Because in the oil crescent, you usually have one tribe you need to deal with and the Libyan National Army. And then you are well off. If you are working in El Sharara or in El Fil, somewhere in the south, there are many possibilities for oil blockades. So it's not only about the physical risk for your people working there, it's also about the oil blockades. And this is an issue this must be dealt again by the Libyans. While keeping in mind, and I would like to highlight this, please be aware, global peak oil consumption will be at the end of the 2020s. In other words, foreign interest in oil and gas from Libya will decrease over time. I would say at best within 10 years. One more reason to stabilize the country, to make better circumstances for foreign investments sooner than later.
All right. Well, we will bring that subject back very, very shortly. But I want to get back to a point that was made. And it is in many ways very provocative by Hosni. Hosni, you said there is no poverty in Libya, or maybe no. I quoted you. There's about at least 19.6% in estimates of several think tank groups, poverty in Libya. And you can add to it for sure what we identify as pseudo-employment. Those people that pretend that they are working and they're basically, selling napkins and figs and so on in the streets and so on, and they consider this pseudo-employment. So if you put it all together, you are talking about at least 30% of people that are either under the poverty line or on the border of the poverty line. You also have inflation that is going in and rampaging with the fluctuation in currencies and all this stuff. The prediction is that Libya is going to have at least 6.2% inflation in 2024. How do you answer all those things, and what are your views on
it's mismanagement? It's all mismanagement. How can you call a people, because the oil is the wealth of the people? How could you call the people poor when these same people contribute per capita over $2,000 to something for which they are not getting a return on? They are contributing into what they call subsidy, fuel, gas, electricity, $2,000 per capita. So it's $10,000, $12,000 per family on average in Libya. So a family that contributes only on that particular item $1,000 a month cannot be called poor. It's been cheated, it's been mismanaged, it's been misallocated, it's been pilfered, it's been call it whatever you want, but don't call it poor people. They're not poor people. They have accepted, we have accepted, because it goes by saying that every people deserve the rulers they have. We have accepted this model, which shouldn't be there, and we have allowed our rulers to steal our wealth. And this is very well recognized. You can look at it in the budget.
Well,
okay.
I will recognize that, but the truth is that I do personally see people sharing their kids and so on, and they don't have the money to pay for it. The people that are not able to finish the month. I totally agree with you. There is an element of mismanagement that is responsible for this poverty. That I don't
75%.
But then, how do you reverse this in a way where you do not compromise the social network? I mean,
we have examples, previous experiences, others who have done it before us in the US, in the reservations, in the US Alaska, which is called UCI or something like that. You have Bolsa Familia in Brazil, by Lola, done by Lola. We have many examples that succeeded, and we are only
like oil to people directly and bypass the government.
I don't want to call it oil to people directly, but simply rather than taking their money and giving them into something that they cannot even pay for it, just give them whatever you want to call it. Call it nuts and bolts and nuts. I don't care what you call it.
And you don't think that there is in the process a risk for the social security of people in there, the network there?
Absolutely. We cannot be worse than what we are. We cannot be worse than where we are.
Ahmed Maitig, I do want you, because you were prime minister in there, and I do want to get your thought on this. Ahmed? Are you there, Ahmed? Can you unmute, please? Yeah.
Mute.
Yeah, Ahmed, can you unmute?
Hello?
Yeah, Ahmed, now I can.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
First, I would like to know in which part you want me to participate, in the first part or in the Husni one? Well,
I mean, it goes on. I would love to.
Completely different. It's completely different subject.
Let's address.
Your guest is talking about different idea. Yeah, your guest is talking about different idea. One of your guests is talking about the problem existing in Libya, how to invest in Libya, how to become an investor in Libya. And he mentioned some problems in Libya, but it does not speak about investors. He speaks about contractors, and he spoke about NOC and the problem in Fazan and the problem in an oil and certain oil area. It's a completely different story. You are talking about contractors with the NOC. If you are a contractor with NOC, the government of Libya and ABC banks and all other financial institutions, Libya will guarantee your income, even if there is an oil blockade. It's a completely different. If you're talking about, security problems and credibility of security personnel, is a completely different story. So please, try to mention the problems, and we are trying to solve it. How to bring investor or contractor in Libya. This is on one hand. Second hand, what Mr. Hosni is telling us is that there is a mismanagement. Okay, there's a mismanagement. There is a mismanagement all over the world, but there is a level of mismanagement. Libya, there is a mismanagement on the problem of subsidy. And we know that Libya is a reforming country, which is you have passed through a period where you have a lot of subsidy, and after that you cut it slowly until you have the point where you have a completely free. Is Libya ready of this or not? This is the question. I'm not telling you that what Hosni is telling us is correct or wrong.
Is Libya?
I'm not going to give you my opinion. Yes.
Yeah. In this current situation, is Libya ready to transform and transition in regards to the issue of subsidy?
Well, there is so many things we have to take care of it before we start this. There is so many other issues. Of course, there is a big problem with the subsidy in Libya. But this is not the only problems. We have two armies. We have two governments. We have two institutions. Even our central bank has been united since a couple of weeks ago. Still, we have many problems. So we have to face our problem one by one. We don't have to jump over the problems.
Very good. So,
Dr. Hani, I'd like to budge in, please.
Please, Fadal.
May I?
Yes, go ahead.
First of all, just one thing what Mr. Prime Minister Matik said, we have two armies. No, we don't have two armies. We have many armies. This is number one. But coming back to the South, okay, when we talk about the South, we as a drilling contractor in Libya, we have over 1,200 people working the drilling in our company, okay? Most of them are Libyans, by the way. Most of them, Hosni and Ahmed, are Libyans. If you give them their rights, so they're getting paid in comparison to expat, obviously, they are cheaper. That's for us our benefit, obviously. But also they're very capable. If you just take care of them and give them what there is dues, there is Libyans. So, by the way, when it comes to Libyan people work just as they do if they have the opportunity. But then I want to go back to the South again, which is to me personally is the most important subject. When we talk about the South, you're not only talking about military, we're also talking about crime. Okay, this is number one. Number two, when you're talking about the South, sir, you are talking about an excess of at least 500,000 influx of going back to the immigrant situation. And do you know that now militias have started recruiting illegal immigrants as personnel in their militias for something like $400 a day? Well, I mean, a month, sorry, $400 or $500. Okay, so I come back to one of the main issues, and I think it should be addressed since we also have Mr. Maher from the US, is that our real issue now, one of the biggest issues we have without question, is also security. Now, and this I'm sure you're not going to like again. Here we have the world on about how we stop the illegal immigrants crossing into the Mediterranean. So we have these frigates and the aid from various EU countries and this. Sir, if they come to my country, I want them to go out. Stop them coming into my country, not stop them from getting out from my country. We have an issue here, a very serious issue. We have an issue where demographically our country is going to be changed. And nobody seems to be addressing this situation. All they address is how sad that people, it is sad that are dying in these boats. The amount of people who die just crossing the border from Niger to the border is far more than this. You see, this is when you said we are calling the expert in security. This is one of the biggest issues we have. This is number one. And
Very-
if I may, one
Yeah.
more, and I will be quiet. The international companies that are working in Libya, okay, they are, because of no choice really, relying a lot on subcontracting. So they're not exposed to the insurance risks of foreign, you know, in the West, when everybody has to be insured, etc. So de facto, what you're getting is the Western companies. I don't mean Western in a negative way, please don't misunderstand. I mean the oil companies. So what they do, they subcontract. Everything is subcontract. Everything. So they don't get exposed to the potential risk of damage or whatever. So it is the issue here. We go back now to the South and the legal immigrants. In as far as when we were talking about, when Ahmed mentioned something about, I'm trying to remember it now, God, which is of great importance. The 90%, even during the laws that we had prior to the revolution, which Husni Bey mentioned, which was Law 9, etc. I was also involved in Law 9. I had companies in Law 9. And it was a very good law, okay? It was a good law. But most of the investments that came, okay, was on a short term. But then it started, as you remember, Husni, 2008, 9. Then we had people invested in development, in tourism, etc., etc., etc. Because there was stability. So the law protects completely foreign investors. And I'm one of them. So I'm talking out of real experience, okay? I've got a couple of companies listed under Law 9. You're protected. So the laws, it is the implementation of the law. We come back again. Implementation of the laws. That's what we need. We need a solid, strong government and one government. All this, what is coming to Libya.
Asuna, your point is very well taken, but in the 2008-2009 era, the security was guaranteed by only one person, and that era has, and we need to
give me,
transform and transform.
Give me,
correct.
Anywhere in the world, sir, anywhere in the world, okay, when there's a government, whether it's elected government, whether it's a dictatorship, it is one person or one government. It's one entity. All we seek is one entity, whether it's democratically elected or whether, I don't care how it comes, as long as we protect Libya for the time being. But seems like we're not getting these elections where all the West talks about the election. 3 years now, nothing happened. Every day they change the number of the United Nations, and we go back to the same issue. And then we go back to HD, who chooses the 9 and 10 people. I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah, no, we all have our kind of.
I mean, somebody help me here.
We all have our concerns with HD and all the other entities that are kind of jumping in and poking into Libya, and we have not yet identified what is the entity that we really agree on. We don't have a constitution. I totally agree with you. But let me have Evan jump in here to bring in the international community. Evan, you've been in different, seats before. You've been in Baghdad, you've been in Islamabad, you've been in different places, and you've seen how the United States and the international community jumps in and out and perceive models of reform. And I do want to ask you, as you come in and you take on your position in Tunis, what is in your mind or what is your idea of what would be ideal as a model, economic model for Libya and the reforms that are needed in there? And I also bring in a subject that I will engage everybody in, which is the macro fiscal reforms that are essential for stabilization of Libya. And I will address the central bank. I also will address certain governance issues and so on. The United States and USAID has been actively involved and spent, I think, almost $9 million on the whole subject of reform of the governance and the macro fiscal reforms that are needed in Libya. Do you want to bring us up to date on this and also bring your thoughts on what you think is the pathway for this in Libya? Evan?
Yes, thanks, Hani, and thanks for the invitation to participate today on behalf of Special Envoy Norland, who couldn't be here today. He's in Tripoli and conducting meetings on these various subjects with both political and economic leaders in country. He was in Misrata over the weekend, and you're absolutely right that from the U.S. perspective, we view Libya as a country with great economic potential. But as other commentators have said, unfortunately, some of the political and security issues and divisions continue to hold it back. From our perspective, a united, democratic, and stable Libya would be really good for business, and it would certainly lead to more U.S. investment and Western investment in Libya to the benefit of Libyans and folks in the United States. And so, as Ambassador Norland, Special Envoy Norland's on the ground meeting with Libyan leaders, one of our consistent messages is exactly how we can accompany political progress with economic reforms. Our colleagues at USAID have a number of programmatic efforts in this regard. And we hear from US business leaders all the time that, they think the private sector, the US private sector can make real contributions, and not just in the oil and gas sector. But I think the real heart of the matter is that not just for Libya, but in other countries I've worked in, the expectation that comes from international and Western investment, of fair, transparent, accountable, competitive business practices. As Wolfgang alluded to, building that credibility among outside investors, building that legal certainty, that capital will be protected when it comes into Libya. I think there's a lot of challenges that US and Western companies face right now trying to do business in Libya. Some of them are mentioned issues related to securing payments, obtaining letters of credits, sort of the ever-changing political landscape, not to mention the security concerns and, corrupt practices that are unfortunately prevalent. I think really from our standpoint, we want to continue to work with all aspects of Libyan society, government, civil society, business leaders, to try and support your institutions to make progress on the economic front, but recognize that it goes hand in hand very much with the political front.
Well, thank you for that brief and concise and avoiding addressing some of the issues that we would like to pull you into, Evan. I want you to specifically, if you can, give us a sort of a brief on what recommendations were made by the companies that were invited to review the central bank performance and the needed reforms that would change the microfiscal culture in a way that would be inducive and productive in encouraging investors and so on in Libya, but also in stabilization of decision making in Libya vis-a-vis the currency exchange, vis-a-vis the evaluation of the budget and the committees that are needed, the technical committees that are needed to actually guide the country's policies, fiscal policies in the proper direction. And I bring this up because we're almost like way further from the structure and the orderly fashion that the macro model of Libya before the 1969 was, where there were technical committees, there were reviews of the fiscal spending done by experts in those committees. The exchange rate could not be fluctuated without experts actually putting together their ideas, not basically into and taking in some of the securities that are present in the banks. And then also the issue of the exchange rate in Libya has really been like on the surface of conversations in the last month or so. So what is it that had been recommended by those corporations that were given millions of dollars from USAID to look into that particular subject and propose changes? Evan?
Yes, Hani, I appreciate the question. As you mentioned, this is my very first week on the job. and have not been fully briefed on the details of that particular set of recommendations. So I'm sorry I'm not in a position to really answer that in a useful way for you all.
That's fair enough. I've been studying that question for some time myself. I've not been able to reach it, and I've been in the job for at least 16 months. Any of the speakers would like to discuss the issue of macro fiscal reform in Libya, the role of the central bank? Who is running the central bank today? Is it a one-man show? Do we have a board? Do we have technical committees? Is anybody want to jump into this subject, please?
We have, Doctor. We do have a problem in monetary policy. At the moment, the Central Bank of Libya is run by the governor and the deputy governor. So many decisions that by law should be passed through a board of directors, which by law is made of 9, at the moment cannot be made. The major challenge of the Central Bank of Libya, or the monetary policies of the Central Bank of Libya, is the spread between the official exchange rate and what they call parallel or black market rate, but I like all the time to call it the free market rate, because it's only at that market rate that you can really access whatever money you want. Otherwise, our terms of conditions and limitations and regulations that are never ending. So the good thing about Libya that we every morning we cash or we get out of the ground $100 million of worth of oil every morning. So the Central Bank of Libya has all the power to really manage the monetary policies in a very positive and sustainable way. Unfortunately, we as Libyans overall, we believe in the fact that the reserves in foreign currency are a sign of the power of the economy, or the strength of the economy, or the strength of the currency. It has been proven it is not. We have reserves over 87 billion, now probably over 90, enough for us to shut completely the oil and have the possibility of meeting our engagement for 4 years to come. So we are talking about 48 months. Technically, or in the way of our mindset, our currency should be 1 Libyan dinars to $1, or even $1 at 33 cents. It is not. So again, we come to the fact that yes, fundamentally we have strong potentials. Unfortunately, the way we are managing this potential needs a lot of refining. We are creating money, something that the US can do, because the US as a superpower, is a continent. It has so much to offer to the world against this creation of money. They can come tonight, this US, and say we create $1 trillion to meet whatever budget, but this cannot be done in Libya. But this is what we have been doing in Libya. We have been creating dinars. If we look at the money supply in Libya for the last period from 1951, when Libya was first established, to 2014, just not to say pre and after Gaddafi, all the money supply was 80 billion dinars. Today, the money supply is over 163 billions. So in less than 10 years, we doubled the money supply. So we have a problem. Okay. If we look also the monetary base, what's the monetary base? The monetary base is the debt due by the central bank to the commercial bank and to the people, whoever is holding the Libyan dinars paper. It has increased during the last 4 months by 30 billion. So there are many things that happen. I know I'm going technical here, so but
no, that's all right.
Fundamentally, our problem is economic. I know Mr. Ahmed was saying that subsidy is not important, but subsidy is eating up $45 million every day out of the 100 million that we are earning.
To be honest, I don't think Ahmed said it's not important. I think he says it takes its time, done in a slow fashion. Since we are still on the macro fiscal reform, in the minds of the Libyans, there's always that question about the taxes that have been put on the exchange rate. Ahmed Maitig, can you address this issue and give us your opinion on it? What do you think of it? Was it appropriate? Is there any way it can be modified? Has that changed? And also, I want to know also your opinion about the 50 dinar currency withdrawal from the markets. A lot of people would like to hear, your opinion and others on this subject. And it's a sensitive issue, but I would appreciate your opinion. Ahmed?
First of all, we would like to, I have to mention that any monetary policy should be taken care by a central bank, and government should take care of the commercial and economic ones more. But in any normal government, in any normal state, that the three should go together. So the whole meet once this policy go together. Today, we have problems. We have many problems that Hosni and Hassouna mentioned, and your guest was mentioned as well. There are so many security issues, and this is right. The problem is how much dollars or foreign currency we need to satisfy the request of the Libyan dinars on the Libyan market. This is the question. It's not the question is how much tax we will about on or create on the foreign currency. How much Libyan dinars already in the market. And this is exactly where Hosni was telling us that there is more and more production of Libyan dinars, and Libyan are printing Libyan dinar, and this is what called inflation on the economic side. Today we have another problems. We have a problem is that two government spending. There is when you have a two government spending that's not controlled, the flow or the kind of the Libyan dinars. You have instead of recognize a strategy that you are having how you gonna do with your social security and how much you're gonna spend on this, how much you're gonna do with the government project and government spending, and the third one, how much you're gonna invest in the most important sector in Libya today, oil and gas. So you know that in the beginning of 2023, there is more than 37 billion was invest or facilitated to the NOC to increase the Libyan production of oil, which is good, which is very positive. But at the same time, is this money was spending on the right way? Is this money creating more production of oil or not? This is the question. Going back to your question, is the 27% foreign currency tax is helping doing business in Libya? I said yes, it's helping doing business in Libya. Why? Because it's guarantee day by day that any request of foreign currency in Libya should be met. And this is the job of the central bank. How it was done, is the right time? This is the different question.
Right. What is 27%? What is this guaranteeing the payments? I don't understand this. To who?
And that's
Hassouna, if you... Yeah.
Go ahead.
What do you mean? I don't understand when you say foreign companies, our money is guaranteed. I don't understand that. Who guarantees?
Hani, you can handle this or me?
No, you.
I know.
You, I think. Yeah,
What,
Ahmed.
Ahmed,
Yeah.
what do you mean by
Hassuna,
that?
Hassuna,
Yeah,
let me explain to you very simple issue. If today you have you are a Libyan businessman or you are a foreign businessman, you have a Libyan dinars and you want a foreign currency to exchange it. How much foreign currency that central bank can guarantee for you? How, when you want to make any exchange rate, is it possible for you to make it or not? If there is a request of 2 billion Libyan dinars.
No, are you telling me that if I go tomorrow to the Libyan bank and I put a million dinar and I want dollars now, you give it to you?
It's not as simple as you explain. No, it's not this way. I'm
What
telling
is-
you,
I'm- I-
if you have a Libyan invoice,
I have an outstanding with Adjico alone over $9 million that go back up to 2 to 3 years. Okay, they have not paid till now because of the situation, which we understand, and that's why we continue working. We have no issue. But I don't understand this point of guaranteeing money to the companies. I don't understand, or to individuals. You mean that we have
when I'm talking, yes, no, Hassuna. When I'm talking about the company, I'm talking about the request of Libyan foreign currency. I'm talking about the
All right.
LC.
Well,
when you want to open LC from Libya today.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, that's fair enough.
Wait a minute. You're talking about the letter of credit.
Yeah. Hassuna, Malik, this is a separate subject that can go on for a whole hour.
Yeah.
Again, we have been able to dissect the issue of microfiscal reform the way we want. There are a lot of people that really believe that this whole notion of black market or market that is rates 0.35 is changed in Libya. Can you mute, please? Yeah, there's somebody that has it. So, I mean, what is this black market? I mean, people talk about maybe 6 or 7 entities that really control the black market, and it shouldn't be really a challenging thing to contain it if it's not already agreed upon at the level of the central bank. It's really bizarre to most people outside how it controls and plays the currency exchanges. It is very bizarre, and but nevertheless, there is.
If I'm a Libyan, I have a child and he's sick and there is no hospitals, and I want to take him to Tunis to treat him. Okay, so what do? I go to the bank, they're not going to give me money, right? So I go to the black market. So they buy the money to go and treat the kids because there is no goddamn medical systems. Correct. Number 2, anybody wants to bring anything, he goes to the bank. They don't open LCs for him. The only person they open LCs to is the person who's well plugged in the central bank.
Yes, so and those are recognized entities in Libya, and
that's the reason you have the black market, Hani.
Yeah, they need. Yeah. Anyway, I think we've actually addressed so many topics, but there still is that a cloud on our shoulders. Where do we start if we want to get the business in Libya in the right track? It addresses restructuring government, security laws, the macrofiscal reform. There's a lot of things that actually enter into the subject of reform. And there is, please, there's somebody, can you mute? We're coming to the end because we are really going over an hour and a half for this. But I personally believe if we want to kickstart business in Libya, it's going to need major innovation. And major innovation requires pioneers to be engaged in this conversation. And pioneers will have to have a certain vision, which is very different than traditional markets that we have in Libya. we're focused primarily on oil and gas. There are other areas that can be expanded. There's renewable energy in Libya. The solar radiation potential in Libya is 2,470 kilowatts per hour per square meter per year. That is considered the highest in the world. We have mining, we have tourism. You've been involved with one of it, Hassouna and others. There are services that need to be approached into Libya. There's so much opportunity in Libya. And the Libyans really need to get their acts together and recognize that all the trivial things that they are involved with are going to be so irrelevant, ridiculous in 10 years from now if they can move on and jump into a more practical and realistic solutions for their divisions and so on that exist in Libya today. I think we've heard from some experts.
I object to the word that the Libyans have to move. The Libyans, poor guys, can't do anything. It's the people who are at the front of running Libya now are the ones who have to move and get their act straight, not the poor Libyans. Now we have this new fashion of East, West, and South. There's no such thing, but it's Libya. So this concept of Libya as if it's sorry, Ivan, but what do you call it?
Hassouna.
Kurdistan, مش عارف اللي هني. Well, Libya is all one. It's a small country.
Fair enough. But the message is,
it's not the Libyan people who have to move, it's the people who are in the governments have to get their act straight. The poor Libyans have nothing. What can they do? Poor Libyans, what can they do?
Hassouna, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to jump in here and conclude because this conversation can branch out unlimitedly.
Sorry.
We've heard some experts, we've heard opinions, we've heard the need for unification, we've heard the need for a better consolidation of our differences and getting together, because I always say that if your share is 1% of $1 billion, it is better than 50% share of $10. And that is the concept that the Libyans don't understand. There is so much wealth in Libya, and their divisions inviting on a smaller portion when the future of Libya is huge potential. So that is how innovators in Libya need to start thinking about how they approach not only their day-to-day life, but the future of the country. Business has a great potential in Libya. Everything that you do in Libya can turn into gold. You have to accept the fact that you do not need to fight on 50% now when a 1% or 2% of a larger share is going to be much more revenue for everybody. I want to thank everybody in this session today. We've had some great insight. Thank you, Hosni. Thank you, Hassoun. Thank you, Ahmed. And thank you, Wolfgang and Evan, for being here today. We're looking forward to our next session, which will address 1 year after the disaster in Derna. Where are we? And I hope that we have some good content. We meet again in a couple of months. Thank you again and have a great summer. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Thanks.